Hi, this is Buck, and I want to talk to you about transitioning from iron sights to a pistol-mounted optic. So as you transition from iron sights, or predominantly shooting iron sights, to shooting a pistol-mounted optic, there's some things that you should probably consider. As I teach people transitioning, largely professionals, I find that some people are very, very quick to accept the advantages inferred by this tool, and others, and interestingly, others that are significantly experienced in shooting have kind of a hiccup. And when I say hiccup, what I mean is they experience some dislike for the tool and they really can't put a finger on it. They're delivering the accuracy I'm asking them to deliver, but they feel like they don't like it. So that's what I want to talk about. So what this tool does, what this pistol-mounted optic, this acro does, is a lot of the work that you have done previously developing an aiming solution, this does for you. And if you think about it, if it doesn't do that, it's not a tool. It's not a good tool. Let's talk about what you do with iron sights. So when a shooter, especially a shooter that's pretty good, delivers or develops an aiming solution with iron sights, they get to about this point in the presentation and they start negotiating with these iron sights. They develop a very, very deep focus on that front sight and they drive it into the context of the rear sight. So if you think about what's going on in your brain when that happens, the part of your brain, the kind of thinking, the focus it takes, that's really what makes a good shooter. A lot of shooters identify with that. I certainly identified with that for a very, very long time. It made me feel comfortable. When I come to the range and I just wanted to relax, that's exactly what I would do. I would shoot for accuracy and really, really enjoy the focus required to do that. This tool does that for me now. So as this shooter is developing that front sight focus and driving it down to the context, they're reinforcing a skill that they've usually built over the course of a lifetime. Now this little machine does it for them, and it displaces entirely that requirement, almost completely that requirement. So when they get to this point in the presentation now, I'm asking them to work less, a lot less. All I'm asking them to do is maintain that threat focus and wait for that little red dot to impose itself on the target so they can then press the trigger. So all of that front brain thinking, that manual thinking that we're so accustomed to and we've tied to our survival is no longer required of us. And that is attended by some anxiety. We don't like that feeling. We don't like not doing the work. What I would tell you is that we're measuring things on the wrong plane typically. So as shooters, we measure things generally with a pro timer, and that's just measuring that time, the time it takes us to do this work. What I would ask you to do as you're training, as you're making this transition, is to consider the amount of work you're having to do to produce that work product, to deliver the accuracy that you're seeking. If you're working just as hard to produce the work product with the acro, or the pistol-mounted optic, as you are with the irons, it's not doing its job. This isn't doing its job. This should be much easier. So what happens when you produce an aiming solution with the acro is it's giving you back that part of your brain that's usually displaced when you come back to the pistol and have to negotiate with these iron sights. That's a big deal. That's very, very important, because now you've restored that capacity to your brain in extremis if this is being used in a duty situation. You have that part of your brain back. You have those capacities back. You have that capability back. And it's a part of your brain that's very important to have that capability restored to you in that situation. On the range, we can see that when we're producing the pistol and we're shooting the pistol, and we just don't really understand how we're being as accurate as we are. You're pressing the trigger, it's hitting exactly where you want it to hit, but you just feel like you're not doing something. That's because you're not having to do something. You're no longer having to negotiate with these iron sights. This is completing the aiming solution for you. So what I would tell you to do is embrace working less. Embrace working less. This is a tool. If it were not a tool, you would have to do as much work, but it is a tool, so you have to do significantly less work. So if you are a shooter that's experiencing some anxieties or dislike for a red dot sight, and you really can't put your finger on it, consider that. Consider how much you're having to work. You may be trying to work too hard to make this thing a tool, so hard that you're making it an impediment. These certainly work, but they require a great deal of work. This certainly works and requires a great deal less work. So for more training tips and more information, visit aimpoint.us.